have Jason Lee here this evening because, as some of you know, he recently landed a job, and kudos to him for doing that. And we wanted him to present and talk about his journey and his transition, and what he learned and what he can share with you guys, and then his perspective on keeping that confidence and positivity going. So without further ado, I'm going to let Jason take it away. Jason, do you want to share your topic?
Yes, I will be sharing the screen, but since we're recording, I probably shouldn't have my address on that thing. I was going to show a resume of where it came from and where it is today. How's everyone doing while I hide my address?
Great. We were going to send you free subscriptions.
Well, it's not you guys that I'm worried. It's not you guys that I'm worried about. It's the YouTubers.
I know. I got you.
All right, here we go.
Photoshop Alan's address. That's nice.
Share screen. There we go. All righty, so I wanted to give Rebecca another kudos because show you guys where my resume started in 2018. So when I started job searching, I just started asking a bunch of people like, hey, what's new with the resumes? What format is it? And I was told that it was bullet points. So this is where it started. And if you see, I don't know, it's basic. The other one looks like this, but this is just like, I just threw it out there. I thought that with, so many years of military experience and a bachelor's degree that I didn't have to work that hard. Man, was I wrong. So then I talked to Les Hoffman, and he's like, oh yeah, here's a copy of mine. And this little QR code actually goes to LinkedIn if you scan it. So I was like, I'm gonna use that. But Rebecca did not like that. But here we were getting a little better. I got a little bit more of a professional summary here, trying to get the formatting down. But Rebecca's like, this is hard to read. You have so many seconds to catch someone's attention, and if you don't, you're gonna lose them. So this is the resume that started getting me actual callbacks, recruiters on LinkedIn actually reaching out to me, not me just blasting random resumes out there. And the difference is, one of the differences is this, starting with the position that you are applying for, actually putting it out there. She said that they'll see you in that role. So it's one of those things about personalizing. Another thing that she yelled at me for is I didn't have none of these on here. She said, read the job posting, and if they say you need ERP or SAP or purchasing or supply chain, make sure that you put them in the core competency so they can see it. And then I went back to bullet points, simplified it enough to where I guess it started catching some eyes. I got rid of the references just in case, to try to stay under 2 pages. They want you down to 1, but so I got rid of references. If they wanted them, they asked for them, but they didn't. So this is the actual product planner resume that I applied to Graco with, that I eventually got the job. Also, when I was going through this, I was that guy that would just send that general resume to everything and it was not beneficial. So then after I updated my resume, these are all the jobs that I was applying for. And you see, they all have a job title. They all have like, some has a company if I was going to do that. How do I blow these guys? So I just started, you know, buyer planner, Dynatronics, logistics management. I left that general in case I had the job fairs and everything like that. But yeah, because Rebecca said, for you not to be getting callbacks, it has to be your resume. And after 4 Zoom calls, how do I blow this guy back up? After 4 Zoom calls and an updating on the how do I get back to the, there we go. So after 4 Zoom calls and updating LinkedIn with my resume, updating LinkedIn with keywords or hot words, I started getting traction. I wasn't even able to do networking meetings because I was doing interviews, you know, 2, 3, 4 times a week. As you guys know, I've told you all about it. I was making it to final interviews, multiple interviews a day with same company, different people. And it's taxing on the body. So I just feel like to bring you guys back to the reason I wanted to do this was to show that being positive throughout the entire thing was what kept me going. I was telling them before we started that I used to be a negative person. It was always, woe is me. It was never my fault. But it was one day in 2007, I was sitting in the middle of Iraq and I just looked back and reflected on my life and said, you know, I am where I'm at because of the decisions I made. And I don't know why it took that day at that time, but I decided to start taking responsibilities for my own actions and to be more positive than negative. And the people I've met since then, the relationships I've built since then has helped me over and over and over again. When I told people in the military that I was looking for work, everyone's just like, come work with us, come work with us. We're here, we're there. And I was like, you know, what companies send me this, send me that. And some things panned out, some things didn't. Everyone wanted me to come work with them. Everyone was wondering why I was getting out. We need you as supply. And I'm like, well, you're not supposed to be a supply lifer. You're supposed to do it for 3 to 5 years and then move on up the chain, but I was not doing that. So I'm glad that I decided to re-enlist for deployment, because if I didn't, I would not have got introduced to DEED, which means I would not have got introduced to Eagle Group, or maybe it would have happened some other way, but I got introduced because of deployment. So I got to get here with all you guys, and I don't know, just a weekly accountability, tapping in, listening to the stories, people out there, networking, interviewing, even the employers that come on here to give us tips on what the do's and don'ts out there in the industry. Just, I don't know, it keeps you grounded. So I don't know if I got those interviews because they just like my personality and they didn't want to tell me no on the first and second, but I'll take it because it all gave me experience to keep moving forward. So that's all I got for you guys. Anyone have any questions?
So this is Alan. I got a few. So you mentioned that you changed your perspective or point of view or attitude. I guess you said attitude, right? So what was causing that attitude? Was it a lack of results? Was it a lack of like willingness to change? What was behind the attitude that was getting in your way?
So in 2007, I think I was listening to the "I should be a victim" rhetoric, you know what I mean, that was pushed towards me. But for this specific transition, I feel like when I go into an interview, whether they told me yay or nay, you know, they all said yay or nays except Graco. You know, I just told them like they don't know who they're letting walk out of the conference room, who they're letting get off Zoom, you know, which is why I started, you know, speaking with confidence is one huge thing, because I said, you know, if the person you chose does not end up panning out how you foreseen it or foresaw it, you know, don't be afraid to reach back out to me. If I'm still in the job market, you know, I might flirt with the idea. So, you know, when you're the hiring manager, which I'm able to put myself in those shoes, you want the most qualified person that you interview to come on board with you. So I know I had the language barrier that I had to learn, which I've learned throughout this group and a lot of Google searching, a lot of YouTubing, to how to explain what I do as a supply sergeant and how I'm able to help the actual job that's open for said civilian personnel or the companies, which Graco is very, very similar to a National Guard supply sergeant. I think it's hilarious because I didn't think that position exists. You know, we all joke about it and say that in the civilian sector, I'll only have to do one job. I only have to do purchasing, or I will only have to do expediting. But product planner, you don't have to. You can't just do one. You have to make sure your stock levels are there. You have to make sure that you have enough people to complete the man hours to complete the job, to make sure customer A, B, or C get their products in an amount of time. You have to work with the engineers to make sure that your assembly line is in the best lean production possible. And you just have to know like every product, where it is and status of it at all times. Supply sergeant.
You said you changed your communication, your messaging or branding about yourself, right? What was an example of what you changed?
When I first started applying, I was applying only to federal positions because I'm thinking like I'm a federal technician right now, GS7. You know, it's easy for me to go in there because I have, you know, so many years of experience to go to a GS9 or whatever. So the federal technician program, they kind of like teach you what they need you to do. They just need you to have 52 weeks of this or 52 weeks of that to become a GS9. Well, I looked at it and I was going to show you guys on a PowerPoint that I never got to put together. I applied for 34 federal jobs and I got one interview while I was deployed, and that wasn't even the state of Minnesota, which I didn't get the job. And it's just crazy. So when you start going into the civilian sector, you know, it's hard for me to say like, okay, so they're looking for someone that's able to do Lean Six Sigma. Well, what does that mean really? You know what I mean? So it was hard for me to be confident when people were asking me, hey, how are you? Tell me your experience with Lean Six Sigma. Until I started figuring out that it's just like Lean, like how do you save the Army money? How do you save your company money? So once I learned that, I was able to confidently say, well, you know, versus letting non-mission capable equipment sit around on the property book, I turn it in. You know, if there's equipment sitting around, someone has to put man hours against that. So just by me turning this deadline equipment in, it clears man hours off the books, which saves the state money overall, which saves the Army money. It just keeps trickling up. So just understanding the language of what the Army did to the civilian sector when they ask you about lean or management, leadership, all that stuff. So it's just when I just take a step back and I was able to give myself or learn through thousands of questions, how to articulate what a supply sergeant does and tell them that I do have the skills you need for this position. It just helps you in an interview because you're confident, you're not nervous, you're not fumbling over your notes. You're able to go in there, keep a clear head, and deliver.
So that brings up a question for me, Jason. I'm sorry, I'm hogging the questions here.
Oh, no,
but,
you're good.
yeah, I know, right, Renee. So if you were going to give me advice as a coach, how can I help somebody have that aha moment of how they translate their skill sets? What was something Rebecca had said to you that made you go, I get it now?
Well, it was on the resume, but the conversation I had with you about United Health Group, you know, and I was going to apply for that position, and you said, oh, send me the position and 4 or 5 things on why you qualify for it. And when you came back and said, you have medical experience? And I said, no. And you was like, well, you don't qualify for this position. You know, just that little thing where you're looking at a job, because I always thought you could just hit as many requirements as you can. But when you actually start looking at that, and Les said this too, you have to say like 7 years of experience. So then you say, show on your resume where you have the 7 years of experience, you know? So I started researching how to answer those questions, you know? So when someone say, why should we hire you for this position? And I say, well, according to your resume, you look for someone with 7 years of SAP experience that know their way around an ERP system, that are able to manage people and, you know, save the company money. I'm like, I meet all those, and I have an awesome personality that I get to work with everybody else. So, you know, like you can't not hire me because I am the asset that you're missing from your team.
Love it.
I think that's great. And Jason, I mean, I don't know what happened in 2007 or 8 when you were in Iraq, but I'm so glad that it happened because your personality really comes through. And, you know, we talk about that positive attitude comes across, whether you're on the phone with a stranger or whether you're talking with a family member, you're on Zoom, you're sitting next to someone in person, your attitude will come through, even if you practice masking it for years. So I commend you for that. I wanted to say too, when you were talking about your resume, you said that you found out that the keywords were important. So help us understand how you decided what keywords, how did you know what keywords to put in the resume? What was kind of the process you went through to get that resume to match up with the job description?
So Rebecca would say it's right on the application. So if they say we're looking for someone to have this, it better be in the keywords. It better be on LinkedIn, and it better be on your resume. And if it's something where they say you need 10 years of this, then you just add how many years you have. But the LinkedIn thing, you know, I was subscribed to so many job alerts, and you know, say, oh, you check 6 out of 10 of these. And then I'll look at them like, oh, I have 2 more. So then I would just back out of the resume or the back out of the application. I will go add the 2, and then I'll go back in and it'll say, oh, you're a top applicant. You have 8 out of 10 of these, you know? So there's a lot of times where it'll say like, oh, you're a top applicant, or you're a top applicant because of your resume. But it'll say you only check 2 out of 10 of the keywords, which means you just don't have the keywords listed on your LinkedIn profile. So that's where US Bank. So after I went through all that, and after Lana yelled at me for the Eagle meeting when I said that I was going to stop applying and just wait for me to start the program so I can learn the information that these guys are asking for, so I can stop wasting time out there. And she still haven't accepted my friend request on LinkedIn, by the way. But she said, what I hear that you're saying is you're giving up, that you're not skilled enough. And I'm like, no, that's not it at all. What I'm saying is I feel like I'm not putting my best foot forward. on what these companies are asking for. So until I learn, I could be burning bridges by throwing stuff out there. But yeah, so and another thing, one more thing, Rebecca, she's getting all the praise here. So sorry, everybody else that helped me. But when she was showing me salary negotiation and what to look for, and she said, okay, what are you applying for? And I said, supply chain. And we looked up supply chain, and it was just like procurement manager, operations manager. There were so many subtitles underneath supply chain. So I actually started focusing my resumes towards procurement, which is where the attention came from. I added procurement to LinkedIn, and then, the searches went up, the recruiters and the direct messages went up and everything. So I just took one area of supply chain and tried to run down that avenue.
That is so awesome to hear. I think that information actually came from ONET. Remember that, Jason? We were looking at ONET.
Yeah.
And we were looking at that one particular summary, right?
Yeah.
With all those similar job titles. I think that was what we were looking at. So ONET, yes. That's awesome to hear. Thanks for the kudos.
You're welcome.
Well deserved, Rebecca.
Thank you for your help.
You're quite welcome. My pleasure.
I submitted a success story to Deed. I don't know if they get published anywhere that we can see it, but I don't know. I'll see if Alan can send it out to the group if I do get a copy.
Cool. So did you actually submit through LinkedIn?
No, I submitted through email. I submitted through 15 emails actually.
How did you find out about that job?
Oh, for the job that I got?
Yeah.
So back to the relationship building and just being that person that was always the bright light in a dark room. There was a guy that retired 5 years ago out of the Army National Guard, and he works for Graco. And he said, hey, when are you retiring? We have openings over here. I said, I've been looking for a job for a year. What do you got? He said, I'm going to send you some things. And he sent them, and I was just like, what's a product planner? I'm like, this logistics position sounds very, very basic. And he said, Graco opens all of their positions the same, but they have levels to it. I think it's 1 through 4, 1 through 5. So during the interview process, they'll say like, oh, this guy is a level 2 or level 3. So then they will bring you in at the level that they feel you're at, or you can negotiate for higher. So I said, okay, I applied. I'm like, I'll see what happens, because, I've been throwing a lot of stuff at the wall and not enough sticking yet. But I don't know, it was the quickest turnaround. I submitted, like 3 people searched me on LinkedIn. A recruiter called me and said, hey, we saw that you applied for these positions in Anoka and Rogers, but there's the same position open in Minneapolis. Would you be willing to apply for that one as well? I said, sure, why not? And I said, wait, what if I'm number 1? Do I get to pick which location I go to? And she said, I'm not sure how that works. Maybe the managers will fight over you or something like that. Which, after everything was going through, one of the managers hit me up on LinkedIn and said, congratulations, it sounds like you're added to the team. And I said, oh, your team or this guy's team? And he said, I don't know, we're trying to figure that out still. And I'm like, all right, so they are duking it out.
They were fighting over you. That's awesome.
I'll take it.
So Jason, I have a question for you. Were you able to negotiate your salary at all, your starting salary? And if so, can you talk to us? Can you walk us through how that conversation went?
So out of all the training that you went through with me, I did not check to see the salary range for the product planners, because it was a product planner 1 at that. But it wasn't until I had the interview, and I was thinking the night before, I'm like, no one has said anything about salary yet. And the first question one of the guys asked was like, hey, well, I don't see any salary requirements down here. I said, yeah, I thought that was kind of weird too. He's like, well, what is it? And I'm just like, what do I say? Not researching this before, very bad. I said, I've been asking for 70 to 90 coming out of the gate. You know, I feel like the first year I'll be getting my master's program, but I didn't tell him that. So 70 to 90 is my range. He said, okay, he wrote it down. And the product planner 2 landed between 70 to 90. So that is okay for me because I know what my bills are. And I know after my master's program, it's probably going to jump significantly because they're probably going to try to keep me there because they know how many recruiters are at the graduation.
So it sounds like you knocked it out of the park without even trying.
Yeah, well, if I'm low, I'm still high for what the military was paying me. So
All right,
I'll
great.
get there eventually.
Yeah, you got, in a way you got really lucky because you threw a number at him and that's exactly, what you hit on. So that's awesome.
Well, but I didn't want to seem desperate. So when they sent me the job offer, I countered it because I'm like, I have to find something, but I couldn't counter the money because I already told them this was my range. So why would you counter the money? So I countered the company match, which I didn't understand how they did it. So it said 3% company match and then 2% automatic, So I was like, hey, I'm looking at the offer here, and is the 3% negotiable? Because I'm currently getting 5 with my current employer. And they just responded and said the 3% is not negotiable, but you get 5 here at Graco, 2% automatically, and then we match up to 3% if you contribute. So it's like I'll contribute 3 and then get 5, which is a total of 8, which is pretty legit for me.
Hey, Jason, what kind of advice would you give someone who's about a year to a year and a half from getting out?
Well, I have been given this advice my entire time I've been back from deployment, which we got back in October, and I got back and I was interviewing with the U of M Duluth a week later, and I would say start learning what the civilian sector requires for experience, certifications, just what they do now, so you can start tailoring your resume to match it and be able to speak to how your military experience correlates to what industry you're trying to go into.
Yeah, that was a big one for when I got out too. It's hard because you don't know exactly what you want to do. So the sooner you can start trying to figure that part out, even a general direction, the better shape you'll be in.
Yeah, well, I knew what I wanted to do, but I still just, if you ask a National Guard supply sergeant what they do, they'll say everything because we literally have to be in every planning meeting. You have to make sure that the company is set up for success, and it all falls on your shoulders. The company literally just shows up, grab their weapon, go fire it, and then turn it back into you. No one is there looking at the paperwork aspect of, the inspections that are coming up and everything. So it's just hard to tailor that down to one position, which is, I still think, why I got the product planner, because they were asking me what I do on a daily basis, and they were like, well, you're not going to do any of that here. Like, you have a lot more leeway here.
Yeah, we think of that multifunctional capability in the military as a big blessing, and it is, but not getting in the door, not for getting into the door of a new job. You kind of have to go sideways in, and then you go back out.
Yeah. So also, I'm going to show you guys one other thing. This was what I went into Graco with. I interviewed with 8 people, and I had this sheet for each round of interviews. And I literally just Google searched. I was looking for something where I could put questions down so I was organized during the interview. So I literally walked in there with a clipboard and like 3 of these sheets. So I and I researched everybody on LinkedIn. So I had specific questions that I was able to ask everybody, which made it look like I was very organized. And I wrote down each answer, and some answers, parlay to other questions, which is always good in an interview, which none of my interviews are never end on time. I don't know if it's because I talk too much or if they just want to keep talking. So this template kept me very organized, and I had one for Graco, and I had one for George Murray when I applied for his position at Dynatronics. Which, another thing, oh man, there's so many things. So after interviewing with George, one of my final questions were, what are the characteristics that you feel someone would need to be successful in this role? Because it was a six-figure income. It was a senior supply chain management manager job. And from his response, I kicked it over the weekend, and I literally emailed him on Monday and said, George, after the interview we just had, the answer to the question your response was this. I feel like I would like to withdraw myself from the application process for further consideration because I don't have what you guys need at this time. So maybe in a couple years, I might have the tools that I can be that star player that you're looking to fill that role. But right now, I just don't have enough of the SIOP, sales, inventory, operation, planning, training, or experience to know how to come in there and fix Dynatronics. So I thought that was, I don't know. I thought that was pretty cool that I self-aware that I did not qualify for that position, even though I made it through his recruiter. Must be that personality.
I like that. Well, did George give a response back at all?
He did. He said, thank you, Jason, for the message. Good luck in the future jobs or whatever like that. And I said, I still want to meet you to get an autograph of your book, though. He said, 100%. He usually meets the 494 at some coffee house at like 7 o'clock in the morning, which I probably would never make it there. He said, just if you finish the book and you like it, please leave a review on Amazon, which I've done a couple days ago. And I reached back out to him and said, hey, the review's up for your viewing pleasure. Hope you like it. So I don't know, it's pretty cool. And I wake up Saturday mornings to catch George and Phil, Coffee with George and Phil, which is pretty legit.
So I was going to mention, this is Mike, on your applicant interview questions. That's real similar to the template kind of we have for the networking meetings. Did you use one like that for networking meetings too, or?
So I downloaded the networking thing from the group from LinkedIn, but it was a couple weeks ago, and it was like right before I started getting the interviews. I was in interviews with Medtronic, so I didn't have any networking meetings when I was interviewing for Medtronic and US Bank and Boston Scientific, then Graco, then Dynatronics. I was just trying to do so much research on George, Brad, the people that I was interviewing with, and a company. So if they actually like, why you pick this company? Why not this company? Just like, I hate these questions, but you have to be able to answer them. So.
And I think that's good that you have the notes in front of you in person. It really shows, like you say, to them that you're interested and you actually have, valid questions and you've done research on them. So you actually know them and the company.
It felt like it swapped the table around, and I became the interviewer and they were the interviewee, because at the end they say, well, that's all of our time. You have any questions? And I said, as a matter of fact, I do. And say, it looks like you've been here 12 years. What's kept you here so long? Like, what does Graco do to make you stay? Just awesome.
Yeah. Great.
And that is a really good question. Is that what the interviewer said? Wow, that's a good question.
Yeah, the one that really blew them away was I said, so I interviewed with 3 other product planners, and I said, so you guys are all product planners. What should my 30, 60, 90 deadlines look like for me to be successful? And the guy was like, wow, that is a really good question. And he's just like, if you can learn the systems in the first 30 days, you will be very successful here. He said, you'll never be an expert as a product planner because you come in here to do the same thing every day and you never do the same thing. You know, it's always something different. But we can't be showing you how to run a system in 6 months. You know what I mean? He's like, so as long as you retain how to run the systems, everything else will fall into place. And for those that haven't seen yet, I put this as my background so you can see that I've always had the smile. There was a dark time in there, but I found it again. And it's just a breath of fresh air. I was trying to tell my daughter when I was in Hawaii that she hates talking to humans, is what she said. Her words, not mine. And I said, I love talking to them. And she's like, yeah, but what if they're having a bad day? And I was like, when they're done talking to me, they would not be having a bad day anymore. I said, I feel like the man upstairs has put me on here to just shine light. And if I can find those people that need a little light shine, then by all means, get out of my way.
Fantastic. I love it.
Any more questions? I see a lot of chats down there. I can't multitask on the system.
So for those that are in active job search, what sort of questions do you have about how this would inform your job search?
What was the question?
So I'm asking the audience if there's questions that they have as far as for what they've learned tonight that would inform their job search, or things that they want specifically as it tailors to what they're doing, or maybe not doing and need to start doing, or in some cases need to stop doing. Right? Because I think too often people think they need to add something to what they're doing in order to be successful. And sometimes it's a question of what are you going to stop doing? And, you know, in your case, you mentioned it was change your attitude, right?
It was also like I had to put me into it, you know.
Yeah.
I just hated just trying to be like, you know, this, a robot, whatever. Not, oh, I can't do any jokes in the interview. Nope. I let my personality come out because that's what you're gonna get if I get the job. So
I love it. All right. Any other questions or thoughts or comments that are coming up? All right. Awesome. Jason, you knocked it out of the park.